In this episode, we're going to take a look at the satanic symbolism surrounding the life and death of Tupac Amaru Shakur. But in order to get a full understanding of Tupac and the symbolism pointing to him as a type of Messiah, we must begin with his origins and the political and social realities and struggle for equality that existed in America at the time just before and leading up to his birth. The civil rights movement of the 1960s brought the struggle of so-called African Americans against bigotry, racism, injustice, and the fight for equality to the attention of the world. After the assassination of Malcolm X on February 21st, 1965, a new era in the civil rights movement was born. Before we get to that, let's take a look at the symbolism surrounding Malcolm X's assassination, a man who also could be considered a type of Black Messiah. Malcolm X was assassinated because of the disparaging words he spoke about his mentor, Elijah Muhammad.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the Black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls.
The assassination took place on February 21st, 1965, at the Audubon Theater, when a gunman approached the stage with a sawed-off shotgun and shot Malcolm in the chest. 2 other men then charged the stage, firing semi-automatic handguns into his body. Malcolm X was pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. shortly after arriving at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. The time, 3:30, gives us the number 33 and identifies this event as a Freemasonic blood sacrifice. It is important to note that Elijah Muhammad was a Shriner, a Muslim Freemason. The name Columbia points to the goddess of liberty, who is also associated with rebellion and revolution through the French Revolution. Malcolm X was assassinated on February 21st. The number 21 is very close in meaning to the number 13, as 21 symbolizes the great wickedness of rebellion and sin. After the children of Israel left Egyptian bondage, they had 21 major rebellious events as they traveled and wandered the wilderness. The autopsy identified 21 gunshot wounds in Malcolm's body. February 21, or 2/21, is 2 21s. The number 21 is also 777, a reference to the lightning bolt, or Barak. The date 2/21/1965 actually gives us a double 21, since it is the 21st day of February, the 2nd month, and 1965 is 1 plus 9 plus 6 plus 5, which equals 21. Interestingly enough, the double 21, or lightning bolts, point back to another time in history that was filled with hatred, racism, bigotry, oppression, and death as well. Founded in 1925, the Schutzstaffel, which is German for protective echelon, initially served as Nazi Party leader Adolf Hitler's personal bodyguards, and later became one of the most powerful and feared organizations in all of Nazi Germany. Their insignia was the double lightning bolts. The SS embodied the concept of an Aryan master race. It is important to note that SS officers studied runes, compared themselves to a Hindu warrior caste, and traveled to Tibet in the middle of the war looking for a lost Aryan tribe. The second most powerful Nazi leader, Heinrich Himmler, was an avid reader of the Bhagavad Gita and had a personal astrologer. The Indo-Aryans are believed to be responsible for many aspects of what became Indian civilization, including the Vedic religion, an ancestor of modern Hinduism, the Indo-Aryan languages, Sanskrit, and its modern descendants like Hindi, Urdu, and Punjabi. Remember the Nazis' connection to Tibet and the master race, as we will come back to it later. The reference to Indo-Aryan mysticism connects to Kamala Harris, who is of Indo-Aryan descent from the Brahmins, and ultimately to the Hindu god Brahma, which also connects to the horned bull god Malak or Brahma Bull, and points to the Chicago Bull and Obama as well. As we just learned, the SS were thought to represent the master race, the Nazi Übermensch or Superman. Remember, Obama connected himself with the Messiah and Superman as well.
Who is Barack Obama? Contrary to the rumors that you've heard, I was not born in a manger. I was actually born on Krypton and sent here by my father, Jor-El, to save the planet Earth.
We have seen the lightning bolt used by David Bowie as a reference to the fallen angel. We have also seen this symbolism used by Marilyn Manson for his album Antichrist Superstar. We know that the phrase lightning from heaven is Barack Obama in Hebrew and points to Luke 10:18, which declares, "And he said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven." We can be sure then that the lightning used by the Nazi SS signify the same. Recently, we saw Kanye West in Chicago accompanied by Marilyn Manson at his Donda listening party set himself on fire in a church as a means of representing the setting free of the angel of the bottomless pit, Abaddon. We also know that Kanye, like Tupac, is one of many hip-hop artists who have allowed themselves to be represented as a false messiah. The lightning bolts, symbols of the SS, are actually runes. The lightning bolt rune means victory, or Schutzstaffel. The Sig rune, in its original form, actually represented the sun. However, it was reinterpreted as a symbol of victory. Both the sun and victory connect back to Barack, whose name actually means lightning and whose logo is the sun. Further, we know that Obama also gave his speech promoting the New World Order at Victory Tower in Berlin,
Where a victory over tyranny gave rise to NATO, the greatest alliance ever formed to defend our common security. Look at Berlin, where the bullet holes in the buildings and the somber stones and pillars near the Brandenburg Gate insist that we never forget our common humanity. People of the world, look at Berlin, where a wall came down, a continent came together, and history proved that there is no challenge too great for a world that stands as one.
The reference to victory also connects to another rapper who was portrayed as a false black messiah, Nipsey Hussle, and his connections to Obama as well through his album Victory Lap.
Hey Snoop, let's talk about the brother Nipsey. I never had the opportunity to meet him.
Man, Nipsey Hussle, man, that's my dear brother right there.
You know, I used to know, all I can say is I know that this young man had so much love. He was loved by so many people. I never met him before. I heard his name before.
Yeah.
In the street, I never met him. But the love that he's received,
Wow.
since hearing of his death was frightening. It was just...
It's like a god, right?
Yeah.
Scar, I didn't want to say that.
I'm gonna say it.
I didn't
It's
wanna
like
say
a
that.
god, Mike, because we...
Clearly, the practice of setting up rappers to appear as false messiahs has become the preferred narrative of the satanic occultists who orchestrate these ritual sacrifices from behind the scenes. The victory column, where Obama gave his speech, first stood in front of the Reichstag Parliament building. In 1938, under Hitler's plans to transform Berlin into his world capital, Germania, the column was moved just over 1.5 kilometers to the west to its present location. In fact, Albert Speer planned to transform Berlin into the capital of the 1,000-year Reich, a reference to Hitler, a type of Antichrist, and his millennial reign. While the so-called European Jews of Ashkenazi descent were dealing with Nazism in the urban ghettos in places like Poland and Warsaw during Hitler's reign, so-called African Americans, the true descendants of Israel and Judah, were in the throes of dealing with 400 years of slavery, racism, and bigotry, along with the struggle for civil rights in America from the time the first slaves stepped off the boats in Virginia in 1619 to the end of World War II and throughout the 1960s and 70s. Family members of Malcolm X have revealed a letter written by a New York police officer that proves the NYPD and the FBI were behind the 1965 assassination of Malcolm. Attorney Benjamin Crump made the announcement on 2/22/21, demanding the investigation into Malcolm's death be reopened. We know that Benjamin Crump is a Freemason and has been retained as the family lawyer in several orchestrated satanic ritual events in the recent past. The 2011 letter by the now deceased officer Raymond A. Wood stated that Wood had been compelled by his supervisors at the New York Police Department to coax two members of Malcolm X's security team into committing crimes leading to their arrests just a few days before the assassination. They were then unable to secure entry to New York's Audubon Ballroom, where Malcolm had been speaking when he was killed. The letter stated, "I was a black New York City undercover police officer between May of 1964 through May of 1971. I participated in actions that, in hindsight, were deplorable and detrimental to my own black people. Under the direction of my handlers, I was told to encourage leaders and members of the civil rights groups to commit felonious acts." Wood said he was hired by the NYPD to infiltrate the civil rights groups to find evidence of criminal activity so the FBI could discredit and arrest its leaders. Throughout this study, you will see a recurring pattern of criminal misconduct from government agencies, law enforcement, and the judicial system to accomplish their own satanic agenda. On Tuesday, April 28, 2010, CNN ran a story with the headline, "Malcolm X's killer freed after 44 years. Of course, we know that the number 44 points to Barack Obama. Thomas Hagen, who was involved in the 1965 assassination of Malcolm X, was paroled Tuesday, April 27th. Hagen, who was 69 years old at the time, walked out of the minimum security Lincoln Correctional Facility at 11 a.m. The facility is located at the intersection of West 110th Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. The symbolism here is clear. The name Lincoln connects to liberation and to the setting free or emancipation of the slaves. Ultimately, this points to the setting free of the king of the bottomless pit, Abaddon or Apollyon. Also, remember, Obama has been connected to Lincoln and the Liberty Bell, and the connection to Lincoln is meant to point to the deadly head wound that the Antichrist will suffer and rise from. Malcolm's killer's age, which was 69, points to the yin and yang symbol. The principle of yin and yang is dualism, that all things exist as inseparable and contradictory opposites, like light and darkness coexisting. Make a note of the use of the number 69 as the yin and yang and its connection to contradictory opposites coexisting, as we'll come back to it later in this study. The yin and yang, or light and dark, coexisting is expressed in the Freemasonic checkerboard and connects directly to the satanic occult organizations like the Freemasons that exert control over both sides of a conflict, government, and the organized rebellious or revolutionary groups that operate in opposition to government as well. This also applies to law enforcement and criminals who operate outside of the law, but with the blessing of law enforcement. This is all part of the Hegelian dialectic, which they use to control the masses, namely through the means of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Interestingly enough, the founder of the Theosophical Society, Madame Blavatsky, wrote about Hegel in some of her occult writings. In one example, she wrote, according to the great metaphysician Hegel, for him, nature was a perpetual becoming, a purely esoteric concept. Creation or origin in the Christian sense of the term is absolutely unthinkable. As believers in the Most High God, we know that the contradiction of the yin and yang is completely opposite to what the scriptures tell us, as found in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14, which declares, "Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness?" The time of Malcolm's killer's release, 11 a.m., points to the 11th horn, or Antichrist, as found in Daniel chapter 7, verses 7 through 8, which declare, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots, and behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. 110th Street is a reference to a tenth, which points to a tithe or offering, suggesting that the assassination of Malcolm was just that, a satanic ritual human sacrifice offering to the beast. After the assassination of Malcolm X in 1965 by members of the Nation of Islam with assistance from the NYPD and FBI, a year later, the Black Panther Party, originally the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was formed. The Panther Party was a Black Power political organization founded by college students Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton in October 1966 in Oakland, California.
That are oppressing people of color all over the world, and on a local level, the police, fascist police, are suppressing, repressing the white revolutionaries as well as the blacks who speak of and who are attempting to attain liberation.
The connection of the Panthers to Oakland is no coincidence, as the oak is a sacred tree for both Zeus and Thor, who are connected with thunder and lightning, or Barak. The year 1966 points to the number 666, the number of the beast. Upon its inception, the Black Panther Party's core practice was its open carry armed citizens patrol to monitor the behavior of officers of the Oakland Police Department and challenge police brutality in the city. From 1969 onwards, a variety of community social programs became a core activity. The party instituted the Free Breakfast for Children programs to address food injustice and community health clinics for education and treatment of diseases including sickle cell anemia, tuberculosis, and later HIV/AIDS. It advocated for class struggle, with the party representing the proletarian vanguard. In 1969, Federal Bureau of Investigation Director J. Edgar Hoover described the party as the greatest threat to the internal security of the country. He developed and supervised an extensive counterintelligence program called Cointelpro, which consisted of surveillance, infiltration, perjury, police harassment, and many other tactics designed to undermine Panther leadership, incriminate and assassinate party members, discredit and criminalize the party, and drain organizational resources and manpower. It is important to note that, like Elijah Muhammad, J. Edgar Hoover was also a Shriner, part of the Muslim branch of Freemasonry. One of the primary goals for Cointelpro was to prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. This program was responsible for the assassination of Fred Hampton.
We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
Fred Hampton was murdered by his government.
Shooting started back again. Then another voice unfamiliar to me said, "He's good dead now." I knew they were talking about Chairman Fred.
Recently, the magic of Hollywood has parlayed this assassination into a profitable blockbuster called Judas and the Rise of the Black Messiah.
Deputy Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois Black Panther Party.
A revolutionary!
If you have been following my work, then you know that the focus of the Panthers on revolution connects directly to the themes of revolution, rebellion, and the number 13 that we have been discussing as it pertains to Obama's connection to revolution through his speech at the American Revolution Museum in Philadelphia, where he mentioned the importance of the next 76 days.
So tonight I want to talk as plainly as I can about the stakes in this election. Because what we do these next 76 days will echo through generations to come.
7 plus 6 is 13, the number of rebellion or revolution. This was done in reference to 1776 in the spirit of rebellion and revolution. It also connects back to Obama's mentor, Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals, in which he gave an acknowledgement to Lucifer by stating, "Lest we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all our legends, mythology, and history, and who is to know where mythology leaves off and history begins, or which is which. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom, Lucifer." The assassination of Malcolm X, a type of Black Messiah, brought about the birth of the Black Panthers, which led to the assassination of another type of Black Messiah in Fred Hampton. Next, enter the Panther 21.